The night I joked, "Do you want to move in with me?" I thought I was being funny. The next morning, when she stood at my door with swollen eyes and a suitcase in her trembling hand and asked, "Is your offer still good?" I realized some jokes are really prayers waiting to be answered. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when someone decides to care, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even small words can change a life. Her name was Aisha. She lived across the hall from me in an aging apartment building that had peeling paint, flickering hallway lights, and a landlord who fixed problems only when they became impossible to ignore. I had moved in after getting my first stable job at a small marketing firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. I was proud of that tiny apartment. It was the first place that was completely mine. The couch was secondhand, the dining table had a scratch running through the center like a scar, and the kitchen sink dripped at night, but it was my sanctuary. Aisha moved in 3 months later. I remember the day because she was trying to carry 2 heavy boxes at once, and one slipped from her arms, spilling books and clothes across the dusty hallway. I rushed to help her, and in that brief, awkward moment of gathering her belongings, I noticed how carefully she folded everything back into the box. There was something about her, quiet strength wrapped in exhaustion. Over time, we developed a rhythm. We'd bump into each other in the mornings while heading to work. She worked at a local school as a substitute teacher, though she once admitted she had studied literature and dreamed of writing. In the evening, sometimes we'd sit on the building's rooftop, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. We talked about small things, bad coffee, loud neighbors, childhood memories. But beneath her laughter there was always a shadow. One evening, as rain tapped against the rooftop water tank and the sky threatened a storm, she told me more than she ever had before. Her father had passed away 2 years ago. Her mother lived in another city, struggling with medical bills. Aisha had been supporting her younger brother's college tuition while juggling unstable work. The landlord had already warned her twice about late rent. She said it lightly, almost jokingly, but her eyes betrayed her. I tried to brush away the heaviness of the moment with humor. I nudged her shoulder and said, "Well, if things get really bad, you can always move in with me. I charge cheap rent and make terrible tea." She laughed. It was one of those laughs that sounds bright but feels fragile. I thought nothing of it. The next morning was a Sunday. I was halfway through making breakfast when someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there she was. No makeup, hair tied back messily, a single suitcase beside her. The hallway light flickered above her like a failing spotlight. She told me the landlord had changed the locks while she was out buying groceries. Her things were still inside. He had called her earlier, saying he had found another tenant who could pay immediately. She had nowhere to go. Her voice didn't crack, but her hands did. And then she asked if my offer was still good. In that moment, I felt the weight of my words from the night before. They weren't funny anymore. They were a bridge, a lifeline. I stepped aside and told her to come in. The first few days were strange. I gave her the bedroom and took the couch. I told her it was temporary, just until she figured things out. She tried to protest, but I insisted. The apartment felt different with her presence, warmer somehow, but it also felt fragile, like a glass ornament that could shatter with one wrong move. We set rules, clear boundaries, shared chores. We split groceries as best we could. I could see how hard it was for her to accept help. She insisted on paying me back once she found stable work. She applied to schools, tutoring centers, even bookstores. Rejection emails piled up like silent verdicts. Money was tight for me, too. My job wasn't exactly secure, and I had been saving to enroll in a certification course that could boost my career. With the extra expenses, that plan slipped further away. Some nights, lying on the couch staring at the ceiling, I wondered if I had made a reckless decision. But then I'd hear her softly typing on her laptop in the bedroom, working on lesson plans or writing short stories she never showed anyone, and I knew I couldn't regret it. One evening, about 2 weeks in, she broke down. Not dramatically, not loudly. I came home to find her sitting on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, surrounded by unopened mail. She had received another rejection. Her mother's medical condition had worsened. Her brother needed funds for an exam fee. She apologized to me over and over, as if her struggles were an inconvenience I had the right to resent. I sat beside her and told her something I had never told anyone. I told her about my own past, how my family had once lost our home when my father's small business collapsed, how we had stayed with relatives who made us feel like burdens, how I had promised myself that if I ever had even a small space of my own, I would never let someone feel that way under my roof. That night, something shifted. It wasn't romance. It was trust. Real, raw trust. Weeks turned into a month. She found part-time work tutoring children in the neighborhood. The pay was small, but it was steady. I noticed a change in her posture. She stood straighter. She smiled more genuinely. Sometimes I'd wake up to the smell of her cooking breakfast, determined to contribute in every way she could. One afternoon, I came home early and found her reading one of her stories aloud to a group of kids in the living room. They were sitting cross-legged on the floor, completely captivated. Her voice was animated, confident, alive. I stood by the door, unseen, and felt something tighten in my chest. She wasn't just surviving, she was meant to shine. But life rarely changes without testing you first. 2 months into our new arrangement, my company announced layoffs. Sales had dropped. Budgets were cut. My name was on the list. I remember walking home in a daze, the termination letter folded in my pocket like a secret I was ashamed to reveal. When I told her, I expected panic. After all, she was just starting to stabilize. Instead, she listened quietly. Then she did something unexpected. She said we would figure it out together. The same woman who had stood at my door with a suitcase and desperation in her eyes was now steady and calm. She increased her tutoring hours. She suggested we turn our living room into a small evening learning center. She designed flyers and posted them around the neighborhood. I used my marketing skills to create social media posts. Slowly, children started enrolling. Our tiny apartment transformed into something bigger than both of us. Laughter filled the walls. Books piled up on every surface. The drip from the kitchen sink still echoed at night, but it felt less lonely. There were days we were exhausted. Days we argued about bills, about space, about fear, but every challenge felt shared, balanced. One evening, months after that knock on my door, we sat on the rooftop again. The city lights looked the same, but we didn't. She told me she had been offered a full-time teaching position at a nearby school. Not just substitute work, a real contract. I felt pride surge through me, mixed with something deeper. Gratitude. For her resilience, for that impulsive joke, for the way life had woven our struggles together. She turned to me and admitted that the day she knocked on my door, she had felt completely defeated. But my casual offer had given her hope, even before she needed it. She said sometimes people don't realize the power of small kindnesses. I told her she had saved me too. Losing my job might have broken me if I had been alone. Our learning center didn't close. Even after she started teaching full-time and I found freelance marketing work that slowly rebuilt my income, we kept it running in the evenings. It became our shared mission. If this story is touching your heart so far, please take a second to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. And before we reach the ending, I have a special request for you. Comment the word hope if you believe a single act of kindness can change someone's destiny. A year after that rainy rooftop joke, we moved into a slightly bigger apartment. Not luxurious, not perfect, but earned. We packed our things together, laughing at how cramped the old place had been. I found the scratch on the old dining table and ran my fingers over it, remembering how scared I had been of losing everything. On our last night there, we stood in the empty living room where children had once sat listening to stories. The walls still held faint marks from taped-up drawings. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, not of sadness, but of gratitude. I realized then that sometimes love doesn't begin with grand confessions or dramatic gestures. Sometimes it begins with a careless joke that turns into a promise. Sometimes it grows quietly in shared struggles, in late-night budgeting sessions, in whispered encouragements after rejection emails. When she asked if my offer was still good, she wasn't just asking for a place to stay, she was asking if she was allowed to believe in safety again. And when I said yes, I didn't just open my door, I opened my life to change. Today, our evenings are still filled with children's laughter. She published her first short story in a local magazine. I finally enrolled in that certification course I had postponed. We are not rich, we are not famous, but we are proof that kindness multiplies. So if this story moved you, if it reminded you that even a simple sentence can become someone's lifeline, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories. Your support helps these messages of hope reach further than you can imagine. Because somewhere out there, someone is standing outside a door, suitcase in hand, waiting to know if the offer is still good.